All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews, and tonight we are going to be talking about Netflix's brand new Black Mirror special, Bandersnatch. It's an interactive episode. I gotta say, pretty freaking brilliant idea. I've been meaning to review Black Mirror. I've had requests to do Black Mirror, but I just never got around to it. And I saw this, and I had to work all day, and I actually was going to start it this morning. I'm like, I couldn't. I had to wait until I had the time. And so once I got home and I got myself ready, I was going to jump into this, because this is just when you think they can't, like, what are they going to do next, and how are they going to top what they do? They figure out a way to do it, and by making a choose-your-own-adventure, Telltale Games-esque episode that still has all the trademark Black Mirror awesomeness. And so, I mean, okay, so it's a choose-your-own-adventure. It is, so prepare yourself. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't watched it, if you haven't experienced this, I won't spoil it yet. I pretty much did picked every choice that I could to see all the different things. And I thought it was going to take me longer than it did. And that's one of the cool things about it is your story could end as quickly as it began, but it also remembers what you did when you go back. And sometimes those things that you did before will have effects of what you do later. Sometimes those things will carry over still, which is freaking brilliant. They don't ignore what happened before exactly. Characters will appear or disappear or remember, or there's kind of a deja vu feeling. And that's what's cool. I mean, it does, like, here's the trademark Black Mirror part of it. I mean, we're talking lack of control. We're talking about, being watched and the paranoia, and just all the things that make a great Black Mirror episode, with technology, being a problem. This really just kind of, like, technology really isn't the problem in this. It's the concept of, free will and things like that are also like a theme in a lot of like Black Mirror stuff. The cast is really great. And I'm really happy they did this, but I hope that this isn't something they do all the time. I love it as a concept, because single-handedly, this is one of the best concept episodes of all time. Is it flawless? No. But it's so addictive, you want to see everything that you can possibly do. And just by accident, I kind of got, like, there's multiple endings. There's two main endings, and then there's different things that you'll choose that will completely end your story and restart it, or there'll be branching off points to where the story will go for a little while, and then you'll end up back to where you'll have to go back and pick a different choice that you made. And still, that choice that you made isn't completely erased. Some aspects still stay with it. And that's probably one of the best parts about this, is how they pulled this off on the platform. The way it is, it could easily be jumbled up. But somehow, they've got it so that it remembers things for you. It's as close to a video game television experience that I've ever seen. Now, when I say it's like a Telltale game, if you're not experienced with or have any knowledge of Telltale games, their games are all these heavy narrative. Basically, they're not really games. You're playing like a movie, or like a story. They've done things like Batman and Walking Dead and Borderlands and Game of Thrones, and those games have you make, like, you follow a narrative and there's a series of choices. But in those, there's only really one or two endings most of the time. And most of your choices don't really matter. you're still getting guided to a specific place. It's just sometimes people will treat you differently. Sometimes things will be different, but not by that much. And that's what this is closely more like than a real choose your own adventure book. Because in a choose your own adventure book, I mean, you can go and just keep starting it over and over, and in your head it doesn't really matter. In this, though, it's more like a telltale game as far as like, it's not like a telltale game, I mean, by your choices matter, and it's the experience of kind of thinking that it's just one thing. Because one of the themes in this is, you know, multiple realities and manipulation and control. And I can't say more than that without getting into spoiler territory here. But the main story is you're this kid who's trying to make a game based on this book, Bandersnatch, which is like this massive choose your own adventure book that was made by a guy who went crazy, killed his wife, and like basically made branching paths like for the story in his wife's blood. And now this kid is trying to make a game based on that book. In 1984, back when games were really, this was like around the time that Atari was taking the nosedive and stuff. So this is right before, you know, a year or so before Nintendo even came out. So games really weren't that big a deal. They were in that weird in-between place where they really weren't very popular. They were losing people a lot of money. But this company that this guy is setting up is trying to change all that. There is a nice Black Mirror Easter egg in here for Metalhead. It's for the black and white episode. I forget what it's called. But there's also like if you look later on in one of the near the end of the parts, there's a mention of the other episodes in like the newsreel footage, or the at the bottom of news channels, they'll have like little stories. There's like mentions of other Black Mirror episode stories if you read carefully. But so this kid gets this chance to make this game with these people or not. And depending on what you choose, you know, your story goes a certain way, or you have to go back and do it over again. And really it's about how the obsession that this kid gets trying to make this game, and how trauma in his past, and doing this alone, and the concept of the book, and the alternate realities, and the branching paths, and the many different ways that things can go start to drive him crazy. And there are this story will take you down different roads depending on what you pick. But I thought my first time through it, I got I accidentally thought I got to like the right ending, or like the probably like Black Mirror-y ending. But then as I kept going, there were other things that would happen where I'd get a bad ending, or I'd get a really, an ending that would cut off completely, and I'd, make a bad choice, and then have to start over. But then even further, on my very last attempt with different choices, I ended up with a whole other ending that did actually feel like the ending I was supposed to get to, because it's meant to be kept going. You're meant to watch this and keep going until you get all of it. You can stop it, but I don't recommend it. It really isn't all that hard to get through all of this, even though these days people with their attention spans being like hummingbirds, I can see how some people would just keep trying to restart it and really making it much worse on themselves. If you just stick with it, you can get through all of it in about an hour and a half, maybe a little bit longer than that. But I I dig it, man. And it is something that Netflix could try with other things. That's a slippery slope too, because while they handled it really well in this episode, and Black Mirror I think is perfect for this kind of thing, I think other things may not lend itself that well to this kind of concept. Depending on how they do it, though, it could be something, as long as they do it in little doses here and there and not try to make this a brand new thing all the time. As long as they make it kind of special and take their time with it, I think that this could work with other things that Netflix wants to do. This is definitely a great experiment, and Black Mirror is the perfect place to do it. So if you have seen this is where we're going to get into spoilers. We're at past 10 minutes, so if you've lasted this long, here's where we start to spoil it, and this is for people who watched it. So, spoiler warning from here on out. So, yeah, I accidentally got like through this path where I kind of felt like I was really streamlined. I hadn't had any cutouts. I hadn't had like a negative ending where I had to start over. I got it was probably like 30 or 40 minutes of the episode through, and I was like, well, I got to this ending where you get to pick the person's struggling with the free will. I love that concept in this. He keeps saying, feels like somebody's controlling me, and it is. It's us. We're controlling it, and he's aware that somebody's doing it. And there's this point where he says, who is this? And you get the option of picking Netflix or the branching symbol, like the Jefferson Davies symbol, the branching symbol of the crazy person. So the first time I did it, I just picked Netflix because I thought, okay, what are they going to do with this? And in the end, you're explaining that you're on a platform or streaming service from the future, and the kid ends up going to his shrink, trying to explain that he's being controlled by a platform and streaming service that's kind of like TV from the future. And the lady's telling him, well, if this is really entertainment, shouldn't something more exciting happen? Because really all this has been is you talking to me, and it's really not that exciting as far as a TV show would go. And she's got a point, and that's hilarious. Like, that's really, really funny, is that if this is what people find entertaining, like, wow. Like, this is pretty boring. But then you get to pick, what do you think? And it's either yes or fuck yes. And I just picked yes because I didn't know what fuck yes was going to mean. And I throw a cup of coffee in her face and then try to jump out the window instead of fighting her, because I just didn't want to fight her. I knew it was going to it'd be cool, and maybe later. That's one of the things I didn't go back. I didn't pick fight her. There's a couple of little things that I still can go back and watch, but I'm going to give it a day to go before I go back and pick a couple of little choices that I didn't make throughout, because I wanted to get to making this video. But then you find out that you're actually on a set. They yell cut before you jump out the window, and you realize you've been making an episode of Black Mirror the whole time, except your character has kind of, the actor that's playing the character, Stefan, is basically lost his identity and thinks he is Stefan now. And that's why I was like, oh, okay, I'm in this that's a Black Mirror ending. Like, yeah, the kid's lost, all semblance of reality, and now he thinks that everything he's been doing is real, and it matches with the whole free will, people pulling the strings, no control, that kind of thing. But then it goes back, and I get to it reverses, and I picked something else, and that was a bad ending. I wasn't supposed to pick that. It immediately tells me what a bad choice I made. So then I go through the story some further, and at least it doesn't make you do the whole thing all over again. It kind of like fast forwards a little bit at a time. And I pick another branching path, and this one takes me with the character Colin, where he has me drop acid, and we have this great conversation about Pac-Man, which is really fascinating, about how Pac-Man's really a nightmare, and that Pac-Man is just kind of us, just constantly going and going and going and never being able to escape. There's no real free will. We're being chased by our nightmares. Even if you think you can get away, you really can't. It's really an interesting way of looking at Pac-Man, which is fantastic bit of dialogue delivered by, he was from We're the Millers. The kid who plays Colin was so great in this. Will Poulter, that's his name. Really good in this. And that whole speech was really great. That reminded me of like a Quentin Tarantino-esque kind of conversation. And in that moment, you know, like you know something bad's about to happen when they go out on the balcony. And I just, for some reason, just wasn't going to be the one who jumps out the balcony, because he wants to prove that there are multiple realities, and no matter what happens, if I jump or you jump, we will come back. And so I made him jump, and it was pretty Wile E. Coyote the shit out of that, and just boom, and dies. And then this Bandersnatch comes out of nowhere, and the episode restarts, or at least takes you back to a certain point. To before this choice. Except, see, in this choice that you make, you remember that Colin jumped. So when you go back, Colin's missing now. So instead of restarting and Colin still being there, no, he's gone. And that's what's so great about the way they did this, is that you remember that he's gone, you know why he's gone, but he didn't technically jump, so he's just missing to these people. And so you can't, you know, you can tell people what happened, but there's no evidence, there's no body, he just disappeared. And so then you got another choice, and that's, you know, you can, there's a point where you end up killing your dad or not killing your dad. And either one ends up with you getting caught, and eventually getting caught. And your game, but like in one aspect, you just are in jail writing that little branching path pattern. Or in another one, you get away with it for a minute, your game becomes this huge success, and then they find out that you killed your dad. And then we get the real ending, or one of, like, what I feel is like the real Black Mirror-esque ending, is that now we're in the future, and it's a story that we've been watching about this story, and how now somebody wants to remake Bandersnatch for Netflix. It made me also kind of think of that Romanoff's episode with Christina Hendricks that's very polarizing, about reality and things like that. And so that's just, this whole thing is just great. I was having a kind of a shitty day, but now it's fun to be able to talk about something like this, and it does make me want to go in to the Black Mirror episodes and maybe start reviewing those pretty soon. I hope they come out with new episodes also, by the way. I can't get enough of that show. And I'm glad it's on Netflix, because if it was on BBC, we might be waiting like another who knows how long. But anyway, so if you haven't, like, if you've gotten this far, then you've probably played it, or you don't care that it gets ruined. All I could say is that I'm not going to give away every little thing that happens. I can also tell you that not every choice matters, but if you use common sense through a lot of it, at least the very first time you watch it, you can kind of figure out how to get to an ending without it cutting you off too soon. But even then, it's still worth going and playing and picking multiple choices just to see how far you can get before it makes you restart. So anyway, that's this Black Mirror episode, Bandersnatch. I really loved it. I hope you guys like it too. So if you like this video, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, all of that jazz. Otherwise, this is Rob at Smirking Gun Review saying have a great day, and we will see you on another episode. Bye.